Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes commentary. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing as it helps out the channel, and give this video a like if you do like it. So this is a commentary for Get Rich Quick Porky, released in 1937. It's the 174th in the series, and it's directed by Bob Clampett, with Chuck Jones as assistant director, though he's uncredited here. You can find this cartoon on the Porky Pig 101 set. Just be mindful that the intro and outro music are incorrect on that set, and I've had to manually fix it up. And the restoration is okay. It's not too bad, but at least it's watchable. Because growing up, this was one of the cartoons I watched over and over again in a redrawn, colorized, poorly colorized, I should say, version on a worn-out public domain videotape. So even seeing it in this state, where it's not even the greatest restoration, it's still a revelation, because you can see the animation so much better versus all that really choppy and just downright poor quality of the redrawns. So this particular cartoon is notable for two things. One, it's the third and final appearance of Gabby Goat. It's quite clear the character wasn't going to go anywhere. They were going to use him in one more cartoon, but they changed him, and I'll let you know which cartoon that is once I get up to it. And in this one, Gabby's voiced by Cal Howard, whereas in the previous two, he's voiced by Mel Blanc. Porky, of course, Mel Blanc, of course, does the voice of Porky, and Earl Hodgins does the voice of the oil hustler. And I just love his delivery of the hustler. It's such a fantastic delivery. It's such a good cartoon. Now, in terms of animators, what's interesting is that a fella by the name of Devin Baxter, he did this animator breakdown of who did what in this particular cartoon, and because there was an animator draft that was discovered, and yeah, it points out who did what. So I'm not going to go through all that in detail. I will put a link below in the description for that particular article, and also his Patreon, because he's a wealth of knowledge on how to identify animators, and yeah, his stuff's really great. I am part of his Patreon. I pay my dues there because I really want to learn how to identify animators, and he does top-notch work. So there you go. But what I will say is that Chuck Jones does the scenes with the gopher, and I will point out something very interesting once we get up to those scenes. Now, when it comes to this sort of cartoon, so this is the last cartoon done at the Iwerks studio, before they went back to do this, before Bob Clampett went back and to do his cartoons in-house at the Schlesinger studios. And so that's why you might see that there's some, I guess, more rubber hose type animation here and there, but still a Clampett cartoon through and through, with some of Chuck Jones's sensibilities, which I'll point out soon. And music-wise, you know, we got some tracks that are definitely becoming Looney Tunes staples, like With Plenty of Money and You, She Was an Acrobat's Daughter, We're in the Money, and I've been working on the railroad. So those are pretty recognizable, especially if you've been watching Looney Tunes for the longest time. And the song Queer Antics plays while the dog picks up the bone as well. But there is also one other first. Now, the merry-go-round broke down was first featured in the Melodie short Sweet Sue, which I did commentary for recently. But now we can hear it for the first time in a Looney Tunes cartoon, which, of course, the song becomes the Looney Tunes theme song. And that won't happen for a few months after this cartoon was released, but it's definitely an interesting first that we see in this particular cartoon. I love that Porky's face there. Now, if you watch this scene here, so as I mentioned before, Chuck Jones does the animation here, and what's really interesting, if you watch a lot of Chuck Jones's late 30s, early 40s stuff, the quote-unquote unfunny stuff, which, look, I do like some of his work in that period, and we'll certainly explore it once we get there, which will be soon enough. But if you are familiar with those shorts of that period, tell me that this scene right here is not unlike a Chuck Jones short of that period. It's got all of his sensibilities. It's as though Bob Clamp had said to Chuck, look, can you do this scene for me? Because at the time, as my good friend Austin Kelly, who's given me wealth of information as usual, has said that Clampett was writing his own material at this time, so maybe he was just doing so much that he's just deferred this scene for Chuck to do, and it just screams Chuck Jones of that period. But let me know if you agree with that or not, but that's just my little observation there. And it's also interesting how later on how Chuck and Bob would Chuck would end up just hating Bob Clampett, and there was just this, I guess, grudge that Chuck would have, and a lot of that just, from my understanding, stems from the fact that Chuck wanted to be credited as a co-director. Bob tried to get it done, but the higher-ups said no, and Bob said, sorry, I can't do that, and Chuck would then hold the grudge. So, yeah, so it's quite fascinating that whole grudge that Chuck had. But I love that it says before, by the way, it said oil, and then it goes, same oil. Ah, dear. So what do you guys think of this cartoon? Look, this one's definitely a childhood favourite. I watched this one to death, but to see it even in its not quite restored state like this is definitely a revelation, and it's like watching the cartoon again for the first time. I think the gags are solid. It's not the greatest Porky ever made, and I think once Clampett gets back to the Schlesinger studio, then things really do, of course, pick up for Clampett's stuff, which I'm a huge fan. I'm definitely can't wait to explore some of the really wacky stuff that will come out from his particular unit, both later on in 37 and in 38. So yeah, let me know what you think of this one, guys, and as always, until next time, see ya.